Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today I'm doing another interview. My guest today has appeared in The Next Step is Gavin Davenport and also the head of Absolute Dance. They've also appeared in things such as Odd Squad, and today they're going to come on and tell us more about themselves and more about their career. Today Christy Bruce will be joining me and she's going to tell us a bit more about herself.
Hi, my name is Christy Bruce, and a few things that I've been in are The Next Step, Schitt's Creek. Do you get that in England? I don't know. You will eventually. A TV show called The Odd Squad, Designated Survivor, Orphan Black, and I do theatre.
Oh, fantastic, and thank you so much for coming on the show, Christy. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Nice to be here.
Thank you again. So my first question for you is, when did you first get into the acting world?
I actually started improvising when I was around 16. So I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and there's a theatre there that was run by Keith Johnstone, who is a Brit and quite a famous improvisational guru. So I started doing that when I was 16, so that was kind of my first entry into the professional world.
Yeah, fantastic. And my next thing is about The Next Step. So first of all, what was it like auditioning for the show?
I've auditioned in a lot of weird spaces, and this was definitely the top 5 because their studio is is in this kind of weird industrial building. And so to audition, they took us through the inside of the building, and then you waited in their mini kitchen, like where like the writers and the producers would go and like get coffee and snacks. So you wait there, and then the actual audition was in a very cramped office. So there were 3 people behind a desk, and then you just stood on the other side of the desk. And it was actually completely improvised. They gave us a scenario, and then we just had to improvise, which was great.
Yeah, that does sound great. And obviously you got to work with like Alexandra Beaton and Brian O'Leary. So what was it like working with the cast?
They were amazing. They were so great. Everyone's very, very welcoming. And, it's really nice. You can quite quickly, when you get on set, get a feel for what it's like for the people that are there day in, day out. And that one was just a really great, warm environment. And I actually know one of the writers, Jan Caruana. We've been improvising together for a long time. And she's one of the nicest people in the world. So knowing that she, was there to kind of steer the ship a bit, I trusted her that things would be great. And also like watching everyone dance, because I was there when they were filming in my episode, the big dance routine. Like they just, I was in awe. They're so talented and so energetic. It was great.
Yeah, like you were saying about the dance, obviously you were the head of Absolute Dance, and what was it kind of like being like a power figure, because you had the decision to see if they could go to nationals?
Yeah, I think anytime you get to play that kind of high status, really confident character, there's a lot of fun to be had in that. Originally I didn't even audition for that role. I was auditioning for another role, and this role I was scheduled to go to a male actor. But then when I auditioned, they were whispering like, oh yeah. And so, honestly, I can't remember my name in that show, but it's like a male's name, but they just kept it. But yeah, super fun.
You were called Gavin Davenport.
That's it. Yeah, Gavin. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that because it's kind of like a very flowy name. That's how I can remember that.
Yeah, it is very flowy.
So, moving away from The Next Step, you were mentioning earlier about your acting career. So do you have any advice to people who want to get into acting?
Well, I'm sure you've heard this before. It's not easy. It's not an easy life. It's a life that is full of rejection, if you look at it that way. So it can be quite hard, and especially during a pandemic, the theaters are shut down for almost a complete year now. So there's certain obstacles that can get in your way. So it does need to be something that you're quite passionate about. That being said, it's also so great to have a career that you are passionate about, that brings you joy. I think that is, I'm not much of a capitalist. As long as I've got a roof and some food, then it's pretty good. But, it is, as long as you can keep doing what you love and manage to feed yourself, I think you're doing pretty good.
Yes, 100%. And my next question is about when you were on Odd Squad. So what was it like playing Miss Triangle on the show?
Oh my gosh, I've done, I think 4 or 5 Miss Triangle, maybe 4 Miss Triangle episodes so far. And again, she's another really high status character. What I like about her is each time I do the show, I'm like, evil, not evil, evil, not evil. So she's kind of lives in this world of not knowing who she is. But again, that's another set that is just so fun and so enjoyable. And the costumes are amazing. And the wig, I have quite a huge wig on that show, and that's about 3 or 4 pounds worth of hair on top of my head. So that can get hard on your neck after a week of shooting, but always enjoyable.
Yeah, it does sound enjoyable. And my next question is, as well as acting, do you have any other hobbies?
Oh, I wish, especially now. I play a little bit of guitar. It's funny, I was just talking to my friend the other day about hobbies, and I guess really right now my only other hobby is meditating, which doesn't sound like a hobby. It sounds a little bit more like a life choice, which it is, but it is the one thing that kind of is getting me through. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a unique and fun hobby to have though, and I think for a lot of people, like, meditating can really like calm you down and put you back on the planet in lockdown.
Yeah, it's really good. And it's also really good for acting, right? Because quite often, especially with auditions or when you get on set, there's a lot of that nervous energy can come into play. So those kind of breathing techniques and really just grounding and focusing are huge assets for sure for the work as well.
Yeah, definitely. So a few years ago, you appeared as Susan Duncan in the TV series Orphan Black. What was that like?
That was great. I mean, it was just 2 days of doing things, and then they took it and they just kept plunking it in different episodes. So it's kind of in the way ideal because it was a minimal amount of work, but then in multiple episodes. And that, it was really interesting with that one because the breakdown, the husband was British, but it didn't say that the wife was British. But they were from England, so I just made the assumption and made the choice to do a British accent in the audition. And then the people in the room were very excited about that. And they're like, oh, of course she's British. Of course she is. I don't know why we didn't say that. So in the back of my head, I knew that I was in the running because every single person after me that was coming into audition, the last minute it was going to be told, could they do a British accent? So I was like, oh, I think I might have just thrown everyone off a little bit.
Yeah, though, that sounds like it was a super fun audition, and yeah, it's great you got to do that. So I've spoken to quite a few actors recently, and they've been telling me who they look up to. So do you look up to anybody in the acting world?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of, because I do a lot of comedy, I have, it's mainly comedy women. For me, one of the biggest, I think, would be Catherine O'Hara. Don't know if you know her. She's a Canadian comedian, but she's also done a ton of American movies and things like that. But she also, there's a theater called Second City here in Toronto. It started in Chicago, and so she's an alumni of that, as am I. So it's just that kind of our worlds are very, very similar where we've come from. And actually, when I did the TV show Schitt's Creek, she's the star of that, so I got to meet her, and so that was really nice as well.
Yeah, that does sound really nice. And earlier on, you were mentioning, as well as being on TV, you also do theatre. On your IMDb, it says that you've appeared in the West End and Broadway. So can you name a couple shows you've been in, and what was it like being on those massive stages?
Complete lies. Just kidding. Could you imagine? I'm just gonna make this up. On Broadway, I was an understudy for Private Lives, which is a Noel Coward play. So I understudied Kim Cattrall, who was famous from Sex and the City and a few other shows, and Anna Matlin, who is a West End actress. She is lovely. It really is like, I felt like someone came down and plunked me out of my life and then plopped me into this surreal world for a few months. And, we'd go to bars afterwards that were, private clubs that only the Broadway performers could go to. And one night I was we were having drinks, and I was here, and right behind me was Alan Rickman, just chatting. And it was just this thing where you're just like, this is amazing and fantastic and surreal, like a dream. And then the West End, I did a show called Blind Date, which I had done for over 10 years, which is great. It's a great show. It's basically you pick one person from the audience, you bring them up on stage, and you do a 90-minute improvised show with them. And so I loved working in London. I've always said that I would never live in New York to struggle, but I'd live in London to struggle, if that makes sense. as an actor because I love living in London so much.
Yeah, well, obviously I'm in the UK and I've never been to New York, so I can't say what that's like, but I've been to London and I love London so much. Hopefully I can go back soon after all of this.
Oh, 100%. It's the plan. We were actually planning to go last Christmas, but then everything happened. So
Yeah, hopefully in the future. Do you find that like the acting and theatre auditions are different from TV, or are they kind of similar?
they're different. They're very different beasts. Acting for TV and film is different than acting for theater. They're you know, in this kind of world with cameras, it's everything's much smaller and held in a little bit more, less reactive on the outside. But with theater, it's a bit more energy that comes out just because you do have to reach, back farther. And I think too for theater auditions, for my experiences anyway, and I'm sure it differs for other people, there's just a little bit more involved with theater auditions for me. Just there's usually more involved in the character, and then you have a whole play that you can really dig your kind of nails into to prep.
Yeah, definitely. And what has been the best experience in your career so far, if you can choose?
Oh, there's a few. I would say, I think the best experience. I think maybe one of the ones that was if you kind of think of best as like successful in a way, like personally successful, was when I auditioned for the Broadway show, because I came in and my agent had given me these 4 pages of sides. And then I got in and we chatted for quite a while. Everyone was very nice. And then they said, okay, you ready? And I'm like, yeah, just these 4 pages? Because it seemed quite small for such a big job. And they said, well, no, there's 12 pages. And I was like, oh, I've got 4. And I gave them the sheets and they weren't even what I had was not even part of what the audition was. So they gave me the 12 sheets. And I'm dyslexic, so cold reads for me are very difficult. So I had like 2 minutes to go out and quickly highlight my lines and try to get everything straight, and then go in and do it. And so for me, that was it was great because it really fueled so much of the skills that I have been practicing since I was 16, which is that idea of improvising, using those skills to kind of be able to take in a lot of information at once and still move forward without getting choked up by like, what do I do? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's such a cool story, and yeah, it's so good that like you can last minute just be like, oh, I need to change this, and I think that's always a really good skill to have. So I have one more question for you, and do you have any acting stories?
Again, like just sitting there and having to watch all of those dancers go for like an hour and a half, and then still be smiling and having so much fun. And then their rest area, their green room, they have their big dance studio space, and you go up this tight little stair, and you go up and there's like couches that are just, it's like it looked like a used couch store. Like they were just like couches everywhere. And then just seeing all the cast like come up between takes and just like sleeping on the couches and like huddling in corners, giggling, and it just like, it was very much like being back in school because that's the feeling. And obviously they work together a lot, so it is that idea of like the history that they all have, because you're under a lot of stress and a lot of pressure to get everything right, especially the dance moves when you're flipping and getting tossed. And so I think that ability to be able to go somewhere and just like let out all of the anxiety and stress from that is really great.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story. We always love finding out about like what's happening behind the scenes on the next step. So
and lots of candy, so much candy. Like a table, you have like craft services and you have like lots of snacks, but just like I've never been on a set that had that much candy available.
Oh, I never knew that. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And you never know, maybe Gavin Davenport will make an appearance in season 8 if they go to nationals.
Right? I mean, you never know. If they're lucky, I will grace them with my spirit one more time to judge them harshly.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll have to see what happens. But we have came to the end of the interview now, and it's been fantastic finding out more about yourself and more about your career. So thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're most welcome, and also thank you to everybody who watched this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week for another interview. Bye guys!